G'day, I'm Ali Amo, and this is the A Lease on Life podcast. We have in our midst not only an author and a channel, which is something new and exciting for me, but we also have an intuitive energy healer. Thanks for coming and being with us today.
Thank you so much, Ali. This is so much fun already.
Well, we've already had a little brief conversation before this started, and I have to give a bit of backstory because this is the longest time that has ever elapsed between trying to set up a podcast interview and then the conversation actually taking place. It's been since about March, late March. So we're pushing the 3-month mark.
Mhm.
And what's amazing, we found each other on Threads. I think I found you. I hunted you down from memory. Yeah, hunted her down. And yeah, we have not actually spoken up until this moment. And the second we started talking, I thought I should have pressed record because we just started firing at each other, really. It was brilliant. We're very much talking about what I wanted to get into today with you. So it's the power strand of the web of life, which is science and energy. We were focusing more on the science stuff, talking about food as sort of the energy source. But I'm going to start out by asking you, how do you understand energy? And we'll leave it there and let you go for it.
Okay, I love that. I don't think I've ever been asked that specific question before. For some reason, what's coming up to share, and I don't know how well this connects actually, but we're just going to go with it. So, what pops up immediately is like energy. It's such a thread of life. Speaking of threads, it's like the matrix. It's in us, it's around us, it's everywhere in a much less dire matrixy sort of way. Like energy is that beautiful resource that we all have access to, we can all pull from. That's maybe not the best phrase to use, but we can all use it to fuel ourselves and to support ourselves and to fuel and support others by tuning in with kind of that loop and link of energy. Depending on how sensitive you are as a person, you can really like be very affected by other people's energies. Like you can pass someone in the grocery store, and I'm sure you and everybody listening to this knows exactly what I'm talking about. You can be passing someone in the grocery store and like feel their energy. You can feel, maybe what's going on for them, or receive something that you either want or don't want, depending on what their energy is doing that day. So actually, the thing that I did want to share that may or may not connect is when I was really young, maybe 8 or 9. This is long before I knew like what a channel was or intuitives were. I just had these questions that you have as like an 8-year-old. Specifically, my question was, what is God? Because I was hearing all of these things. None of them made sense. I was like, a big Santa Claus in the sky? No, this doesn't work for me. So I just like asked, I was in my bedroom and I asked, what is God? And so I just saw all the people on the earth, and I'm sure all the plants and animals too, but I specifically saw it as the people on earth as points of light. And then they all merged up into the sky and became one great big ball of light. And that was God. And so that like kind of informed my whole belief system my whole life, and it just made so much sense to me at the time and still. And so I feel like that's kind of what energy is. We all have our own very unique signature to contribute to the collective energy, or you could say we are our own unique offspring of that energy source.
I love that. I love it so much. It reminded me actually, when I was in my late teens, I had a couple of cousins that we'd all get into heated debate. We'd sit around smoking and stuff and just, chat and discuss things. And instead of the whole who, when it come to God, I was very much about the what. And I just remember saying to one of my relatives one afternoon, I don't see it how most people see it. I see a mass of energy. That's all I could see. And when the whole source and all of that started being thrown around, I'm like, that makes so much more sense to me. But there's a massive disconnect between what we perceive to be all there is and all of that and all that is us. I think religion got in the way a lot of the time when it comes to
I think the problem with religion is it takes this really beautiful source material, and then it filters it through, the telephone for well, not the specific telephone, but thousands of years of other people interpreting it. And so, one person hears it from the source, and then they share it with someone else, who shares it with someone else, who shares it with someone else. And someone eventually 400 years later writes it down. And by then it's, practically unrecognizable.
Well, I also see it like, look, think of the evolution of humanity's minds and information and all of that sort of stuff. For the times that these texts and things were being put together and over all of that, I kind of see it like if you're going to be sharing messages to subsections of species in a different point in time, I imagine it kind of like how an adult explains really complex concepts with weird metaphors, trying to simplify it for a child. And we're still now trying to interpret things that have been translated and interpreted from all this time. Another disconnection, the message at the core of these things are being lost, and people then debate and fight over the little differences between, oh, my religion's better than your religion because of this character who did this thing, or this character who did this thing, and what people have done when they interpret their religion. It just takes away from the fundamental message. They're all the same. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we digress, but that's okay. We can roll with that. I'm dying to know because I've never actually spoken to a channel like this. When you say channel, what do you mean channel?
So this is the problem with the words. The way I think of channel is like a faucet, so I feel like, first of all of us can connect with this information. All of us can connect with our own intuition. All of us have the same access to the source material, speaking of religion, that, the priests and the holy men and women did. We all have access to that. We all have the capacity to receive that. Now, some of us have spent more time developing it, whether you want to think about that time as in this lifetime or over other, previous lifetimes, but we all have the ability, whether or not we choose to use it. And so being a channel, in my opinion, is just turning on the faucet, trying to make sure that your faucet is as clear as possible and isn't gunked up with your own stuff, although your own stuff always creeps in. I like to make sure to remind people of that and to remind myself of that. But you're just turning on the water source and letting it come through your faucet. And then you can share that water with whoever needs it. So I have gone.
Hang on. I get what you're saying with that perspective. It's almost like you can learn any skill or any piece of knowledge if you just practice and tune in and all that sort of stuff. But do you then believe that you yourself don't have these natural abilities? Some people call it gifts, some people don't. But some things are just naturally born within you or awoken within you that come so easy to you that are hard for others and that sort of thing?
Absolutely, because some people are here to be channels and healers and artists and authors. And I believe there are many, many authors, musicians, artists out there who are channels, wouldn't call it that. In fact, most of them probably. I've gone through so many different words. I've tried channel, I've tried intuitive, I've tried energy healer, I've tried psychic, didn't like that one. I've tried medium. I don't think that one's accurate because I can get the sense of energy, but I don't talk to dead people so much. So in terms of my own specific gifts, I've spent a lot of time doing this now and in the past. And I do have a pretty specific lineage through my mother. They call it I'm a seventh generation sensitive is what I was told. And so that is very, very sensitive.
Does that mean Does that mean that the sensitivity magnifies over generations? Is that sort of an idea behind it?
That's a really good question. I don't actually know, and I've never checked in on this for myself. So
I
the thing
assume
about
so.
I think so. Um, because we do, we already know with, is it epigenetics, I believe, but we already know that we carry our parents, we carry our grandparents as people are investigating like this ancestral healing and how do we clear what we're carrying for our ancestors. We also carry the good things as well. And I think it can amplify.
That's
So,
intergenerational transmission of trauma.
mm,
Yeah.
and I got a lot of
Yeah,
that too, unfortunately. Didn't we
don't we
all?
all? Look at history. How can you not? What?
Right? And like even
Yeah.
just, like my parents were born during World War II when, nuclear bombs were going off and their parents lived through the depression. It's ridiculous. And we're really, I believe, one of the first generations to be truly transmuting that, whether it's because we have the time and the freedom, we're not just scrabbling to survive in quite the same way, or because we now have the tools. Like one of the most beautiful things I think about this new preponderance of channels and healers and all of these people coming forward is that we're receiving a lot of ancient wisdom, ancient knowledge in sort of a fresh way and able to share that again. Because a lot of things were lost for a very long time. As it's coming back, we are learning how to transmute and transform things.
Traditionally, these things were done via word of mouth, passed down from generation to generation. So it was in small groups. Whereas now, with
Mm-hmm.
the plethora of information that we have and the unlimited access that we have, information travels en masse and can be absorbed quite quickly because we get, well, the algorithm sort of feeds you more and more of the like. So you can kind of reaffirm your knowledge and keep going back to things,
Mm-hmm.
which is always really good. So it seems to be doing great things for us. It goes both ways. Sometimes you can get lost and you go down these rabbit holes that just can be a bit soul crushing at times. But if you look at the positive side of it, I think there's quite a lot of positive you can take from it. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Mm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I do have a lineage with it through my mom's side, and my mom's mom was like fifth generation. My mom was sixth, I'm seventh, and her father was clairvoyant. And on the other side, I'm not sure my father's side, but my aunt, my father's sister, is very gifted as well. So I think it's just coming in from all sides, which has made it, I think it's helped it feel so natural to me.
I loved hearing that there was a male in your lineage as well,
Yeah.
especially generations, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
I find it's just there's so many women. It's not that there aren't men as well, but it's just very heavy women like side
Yeah.
of things. Yeah. Good to see that balance. So
Mm-hmm.
when you say channel, some people have specific people use the word guide, people use the word entity or being, or
Yeah.
some people say alien,
Mm-hmm.
some people just say spirit. How do you roll? Well, how does it roll for you?
So I've kind of gone all over the map with it. For a long time, it was kind of just spirit. And then as I was refining things and playing with it more, I started asking who wants to come through for me, who wants to work with me. And I remember I was, walking down the street, I think to get like a breakfast sandwich or something, because I spent a lot of time going to get breakfast sandwiches. And so I was just asking, like, who wants to work with me now? And it was like a very clear panel of seven. Who was it at that time? It was Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Archangel Michael, Archangel Ariel, Jesus, Yeshua, and oh God, who were the other two? I guess I haven't worked with this council in a while. Oh, that's embarrassing. But anyway,
You dog them.
I know they're like, come on.
Less memorable in the hierarchy, but
Yeah.
still, that's pretty. Wow.
they're
Wow.
fun. They're fun. And I like to qualify it as like not the religion Jesus. This is the party Jesus, except no substitutes. It's just so much fun when I tune in with him and, Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary. They're just Mother Mary's she's a gentler presence, but Mary Magdalene and Jesus are so much fun, and they're just silly, and they will bounce on trampolines, and just they have there's like and this may be my own, and this is where your own yourself comes into the channel too, because I know that my inner child is trying to be very prevalent right now as I heal. And so I think a lot of my guides come through that kind of imagery, because some of the other guides I work with are more on the animal side. So for a long time I was working with like unicorns and dragons and peacocks and lions and giraffes and a phoenix, a very feisty phoenix. So I'd be driving down the freeway just like cranky and mad, and somebody cut me off and I'm going somewhere I don't want to go. And then I just like have this image of like unicorns riding by on Harleys, like, what's up? And then, and then I just laugh and feel so much
Snap
better.
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, I've had clients who talk about like how they have archangels riding around with them in their back seat. And, it's really fun. Fairies have come forward. Apparently I have an office gnome. I didn't know that. A friend told me. She's like, oh yeah, you have an office gnome named Boris. So I'm like, hey, what's up, Boris? And so it's like the more you play with it and ask and see what's here, the more will come through for you, because that's sort of the thing with this. We have personal agency here. We are our own. We are empowered, and we can choose what we connect with and what we don't. So we do have to ask. I think there are a lot of theories on this, so I don't want to say anything definitively, because like I don't know. I get what I receive. I know how things work for me, and I know what my teachers have told me, but I also don't want to say anything definitively, because fuck if I know.
Yeah, but you're open. Your understanding of things for now, or at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I sort of come to understand it, because what people do when they get information like that, they start to sort of process it with their logical mind and think it seems really irrational and very odd and strange. And why would, especially somebody like the Jesus character,
Right.
you know,
Which has so much like mythology and awful stuff.
the lack of imagination when it comes to the Jesus being is very much like you can't imagine a monk being silly.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's why when the Dalai Lama did something that was unmonk-like, everyone took it the opposite way, not knowing that, like, how do you know it's this negative thing? And it's like they can't imagine Jesus on a trampoline, so that sounds cuckoo.
Yeah,
But my
exactly.
understanding is that it's a spiritual projection of their energy, which is multidimensional by nature. So it can be 17 people in one country at one time who are channeling can see and hear and speak to this
Exactly.
same entity doing multiple different things, looking multiple different ways, wearing, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just in one place. And this can be happening across dimensions, across planets, across galaxies, across universes, if you want. Oh, that sounds scary when you think about it that way.
Yeah, right.
But that,
Those Marvel
the
movies kind of
way,
mess the thing.
well, I think the one key thing when it comes to things like movies and songs, it's almost like how in movies there's the coda, like the
Mhm.
core message
Yeah.
about the movie in a nutshell. And there are codes of information, and this is why we connect so
Mm.
deeply with certain movies. Like Lion King did it to a lot of us.
Right.
Moana did it to a lot of us. The Matrix did it to a lot of us. There's movies that have this knowledge embedded within it that comes through. It's not said necessarily plain as day, but stepping up to fulfilling your destiny, even though you don't think it's right for you, you don't think you deserve it,
Mhm.
which is more the Lion King side of it. And then Moana is fighting against what's considered normal and rising to that unknown territory and changing changing the world, making a difference sort of things. There's always these messages coming through. And when people have people like you to connect with, it's another way to get much more specific and direct information. So I can understand that if you're working with somebody, you don't really have control. You have a level, but you don't have full control over who and what and how and when and where these things come through. It's right. Like you could get a range of different things for a person. It's not like, well, I have my little soul tribe that are up there or out there. Mm.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
go for it.
you can receive their guides, maybe guides you've never worked with, or you can receive from their loved ones who you don't know, you know. And so it's really just about double checking the energy and making sure, like, okay, is this an energy we want to tune in with? Yes, no, okay, great. And yeah, so that's actually one of my favorite parts about working with clients is because, you know, there was one I worked with, and I think it was Green Tara came through for her so clearly, just so much information was coming through. And this was a guide I'm not sure I'd ever worked with her. And she was just coming through so clearly for this client that it was fun for me to be able to connect with that different energy.
What did you do? Green Tara? With
Green
Tara? Is that
Tara.
what
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with her. What is her deal? You can, yeah, I mean, there's so much
deal?
information on the internet.
Go
What's your
ahead.
deal? But it was just such a
Okay.
beautiful and Kuan Yin, like I don't work with Kuan Yin much, but Kuan Yin came through really clearly for a client for like half an hour. Kuan Yin was just going.
That sounds
Um,
familiar for some reason as well. I'm
yes,
not sure
Kuan Yin's a
why.
more well-known one. Um,
Okay. Okay. What's the
yes.
weirdest thing that you've ever had come through you via channeling that you were like, because you're not really processing. That's the other thing people don't realize. People get scared of, that's why I understand you don't like the word
Mm,
psychic. People think if you say that, you can read minds, always know what's going on, you can't be lied to whatsoever. Like they get really afraid and uncomfortable. But even when you share something, a lot of the time you're not registering it. You're just passing on that information. It's almost like when you read a book and your
yeah.
mind's not concentrating on comprehension. You're just literally reading and you don't know what you're reading. So you go back and back and back and
Mhm.
14 times and you still don't know what you were reading. So people think that you know what you've just said and you don't necessarily. So sometimes you would say things that you're like, yep, that just happened. What was the weird one that you got?
So this wasn't weird so much, but this is sort of following your point. I was channeling for a nurse. This was maybe like 10 years ago. And I started talking about neuroplasticity. This was long before neuroplasticity was talked about so much on the internet. I wasn't even sure what the word meant. So at some point I was like, wait, is this a word? Do you know what I'm saying right now? Because I'm not sure what's going on. She was like, oh yeah, no, continue. I was like, oh, okay. And then
She's
later,
a nurse. Yeah.
I started to learn more about what neuroplasticity was. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So with the channeling, like half the time when I finish with a client, I have no idea what we just did. I'm like, please take notes because there's no guarantee that I will remember anything that just happened. And then the other thing with the psychic thing, like honestly, I don't understand what's happening around me half the time, much with myself, much less with other people. You know, I think there's sort of this code where you can tune in with people, but like, why would you want to? Because it takes effort, it takes work. There has to be an
Energy.
exchange of energy.
Mm.
Sometimes things will come through like really clearly and smack me in the face, and I'll be like, wait a second, no, I don't need that. I don't want to hear that. But you have to tune in. So most people aren't getting information from others just willy-nilly. And if they are, you can work on the boundaries and make sure that it doesn't assault you at all times. You know, and I've had people ask, like, hey, like when Trump was elected in 2016, someone was like, hey, can you heal Trump? I'm like, no, I can't do that. first of all, he would have to want that. I would have to be, willing to get into that. It's not really ethical, even though it would be. Well, again, I don't want to speak to ethics. I just know what I'm comfortable with, and everybody does things differently. And I don't ever want to like knock what anybody else does. So the only thing I'll do is like, if I'm seeing, and I'll wrap it back up to your actual question. I think I remember what it is.
You do,
When
you do. We're all good.
when I see like a homeless person or someone who's obviously struggling, one thing I will do is send like a bubble of source light. I'll try to maybe tune in with their guides a little bit and just be like, hey, can you fill this bubble up for them with whatever they need? And then the bubble is just sort of in their, it might not even be in their space. It might just be hanging out with them because they have to ask for and accept that. And so the way I think of it is like, okay, if someone's really struggling and maybe they like ask for help, maybe that bubble will be there even 10 years later or a lifetime later to just shower them with whatever it is. I will occasionally do that when it's kind of like non-consensual, if you will, but that's pretty much it. In terms of the weirdest thing I've ever gotten, this isn't even terribly weird, but it was so funny to me. This was when I was first practicing doing this for other people, like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. What is time even? But I had some friends like on a call with me and I was like, okay, I just want to see how this goes. And so someone was just like, hey, what do I need to know? And all I got was like chicken. And that was all I got. And I was like, does chicken mean anything to you? And she was like, oh, yeah, we've been thinking about whether or not to get chickens. I guess we should get chickens. I was like, I'm so glad that meant something to you because I was not really thrilled about having to yell chicken.
Well, Amber, if you can recall the beginning of our conversation, chicken means a lot to me.
Exactly.
Sorry for the people playing at home. I was playing with my microphone nozzles and doing practice recordings and testing the sound quality. And I was saying chicken and rice is very, very nice. And then it cut in because Amber's jumped on the call. So I'm like embarrassed thinking, oh my God, did she just hear me? She didn't, but I told her the story and we pissed ourselves laughing. And then, the love affair developed. But it was just funny that the funniest thing. That is funny. I think that's universally funny, the chicken.
I just love it
Absolutely.
so much. It makes
But
me
you see
so
what I
happy.
mean? You had no background information, like you just go with it. And if that wasn't strange, or you don't remember all the things you've said, 10 minutes later it's gone. Like it's not, yeah, you
It
don't
just,
carry all that with you. You can't.
no, no, you really
It'll
can't.
drive you insane. Something I'm curious to ask you, because I wonder if this is something that I actually want in the world more than you. So you're familiar with Daryl Enkar, that
I'm
the
not
channel for
actually.
Bashar?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Okay. So he's kind of doing his side of the Joe Dispenza. Are you familiar at
Mhm.
all? So
Yes.
you know how they're actually fully testing what's happening. There's
Mhm.
science backing this up because he claims to be a channeling an extraterrestrial being named Bashar who's not far away watching and doing this with multiple people at once. And so they hooked him up to see what happens in his brain while he's channeling and found that, yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about because to me, what's missing from the whole science and energy are very much interlinked. That's why I call it the power strand. It's very much that source, but
Mhm.
we're missing the exploration scientifically on the more spiritual, metaphysical, esoteric sort of stuff. There's a very, and I get the focus on the physical and the medical and the financial benefit thing,
Right.
but like, I just did an ep about that with a neuroscientist who legged it, but like couldn't deal, had to get out of that whole system. But yeah, um, point of the story, I want to see more of that sort of stuff happening so that we can bridge those gaps and understand more about the true nature of not just our reality and the universe, but us and our experience of life. Is that something that you're really keen to see happen in the world as well? Or you're just like, look, I do what I do. I am what I am. I can do what I do. And
I'm
put the middle finger to anyone who's got an ish.
I'm actually both at the same time, honestly, because I feel like if I thought about the science of it, my brain would explode. And this is possibly because science was not my best subject in school. And so I kind of like separated myself a little bit from it. And also, like, I remember when I first started doing all of this stuff and I got some kind of pushback from people and, like, well, there's no science to back that up. It's like, oh, there is. We're just about 300 years behind it. And that was a guess. I don't know. We're probably much less than that now. I think things are moving exponentially quicker. But I think there is, at some point in my life, I think I'm so in understanding it for myself still, because there are people who've been doing this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I'm still relatively, I've been doing it my whole life. I've been doing it more professionally for about 10 years, but there's still like so much to learn, so many gaps within myself that I'm looking to bridge, and supporting others as they bridge their own gaps, that I don't think about that piece of it as much. But I am fascinated by it. I want to read all the studies. I want to participate in it probably at some point. And my partner, my boyfriend, is very interested in the science of it as well. And so, we'll talk about it a lot in sort of that vaguely pie in the sky. Wouldn't it be cool if we could understand what's happening when I do this, or when this happens, or when, like, we're obviously feeding off of each other's energy and maybe it's not going so well and we need to figure out what this is so we can stop, like that kind of thing.
No, that makes sense. I was just curious for myself because
Mm-hmm.
I can't do what you do, but even just with my very minimal understanding and personal experience with this sort of stuff, I've seen people who are complete skeptics of things. What's it called when you can do the medical stuff?
Medical intuitive?
Yes, I think there was a part of that as well. A part of it was sort of clairvoyance. But my father had, how some people used to have one here, like they just have a big fluid buildup,
Mm-hmm.
like a little
Yeah.
bump. He
Yeah.
had this huge bump on his forehead that he'd had from birth, and his hair sort of hid it, so you never really saw it. And there was this woman around the area that he lived that a friend of mine introduced me to, and she lost her son in a car accident. And then after that, it sort of opened her up to all these things, and she
Mm-hmm.
could read information in the leaves from that the tree dropped at the front of her house. And
Wow.
she never charges a cent, and her property, like the front of her house, was declared by the Catholic Diocese of Parramatta in Western Sydney, Australia, as a church. Like it's a holy space.
Yeah.
Yeah. People bring stuff to her. She holds ceremonies and all this stuff there, right? And she sits down with you and she'll say to you, I'm not a psychic or whatever. And I was curious to see what she said. And one of the first things that come out of her mouth was, your dad's got like a thing on his head. I said, oh yeah, he's had it forever. And she starts, like, her finger starts moving down to his eyebrow. She goes, it's going to travel. It's going to burst. And I thought, oh, my dad had to be like 60 at the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like he was, set in his way. He's an old school Greek man. Anyway, so I went home and I was living with my father at the time, and I said to him, hey, Dad, has anything ever happened with that bump on your head? No, it's never going anywhere. And he's like, this thing had it since birth. It's a part of me. I said, I was just told that it's going to travel. And she's pointing down to his eyebrow within 2 weeks. All of a sudden, he woke up one morning and his whole eyeball was swollen. And
Ooh,
it was the strangest thing I ever saw. He
wow.
looked at me like I was batshit crazy when I said this. If you can imagine, like, okay, all right, 2 weeks. And I went, do you remember what I said?
Mm-hmm.
He's had moments like that with things. Like he was telling me about the technological difficulties. You know how when we're emailing each other, like, sorry, it's retrograde season, or sorry, now eclipse season. Shit ain't happening right now. It's all over the shop. He was on the phone to me a couple of weeks ago talking about how everything with technology, he's sent emails to his work that he can show that he sent the email, it was never received, and it's created all these chaos. And
Yeah.
I said to him, it's funny. I was just recently talking to someone overseas who was telling me about it, and I went into it. He actually gave me the fucking time of day. I nearly had a heart attack because normally, if I'm maybe because I wasn't in person, but he'd roll his eyes or he'd cut me off or what, you know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
it's like these little seeds get planted. I think he's a boomer. the generation. I'm just trying to think, oh, some of those nuts are pretty hard to crack. But yeah, I'm finding that people are becoming more and more open because you get all these random things. I think it wasn't an accident that this woman who was talking to me told me something that I could tell him, you know what I mean? To start
Yeah.
getting him to think about things really differently. So each of us going on our own spiritual journey, however that looks, and exploring energy and doesn't matter if you're more energy, more science in the middle, but the more we're sharing with each other, the more open we're all becoming. And I think the place we're going is going to be really beautiful as well. And thanks to people like you, for the most part, that we keep going to for all of the tea, as we'll say.
I keep seeing it like a wave, like an ocean wave, and there are some people who are like right on the tip, who are kind of like tip of the wave, like kind of receiving the most resistance, but they're also like helping to carry the rest of the water, and then some of us are a little bit further back on the wave. And then, there's some boomers who are way out here who haven't even hit the wave yet, but all the water is going in the same place. It'll just get there at slightly different times.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure which way to go with this because I put it out there on socials just randomly and said, if you had someone with gifts in this area and you could ask them anything, what would you want to know? And I just did an episode that ended up going for about an hour and a half. And I don't normally do episodes that long, just answering all the questions. But the truth is, each individual's experience is so nuanced by their own history that it has influenced their perspective, for starters, because we all have our own personal history, which has influenced how we perceive the experiences that we had then, but it's also influenced how we perceive our experiences now. And when it comes to the energetic, more spiritual side of an individual, even when two people just go see a movie, they see two different things. They remember two different things. You look at an artwork, you read a book, interpretation is everything. And how information comes across through different channels or mediums or whatever you want to call the thing, it's always going to be very unique and individual. So I could ask those same set of questions to every single person that I speak to who's in that realm and get such a wide range of responses. So I'm not sure which one would be the best to ask you, to be honest. Give me a set, and while I marinate, you can talk about anything you like.
Okay, what do I want to talk about? I feel like I've had so many other little branches of conversation that have like almost sprouted, but then not. So let's see, can I loop back to any of them?
Let's get on those tangents. I love them.
Tangents. I do love a good tangent. And of course, now that I have full blown permission for tangenting, my brain's like, nope,
Like,
we got nothing for you.
I got it. All right, something that I want to understand then. When you're channeling, do you have like your own little ritual, like a little happy dance or something that you do to get in the zone to channel? What do you do?
Not really. I basically just decide that it's time to do it, whether it's because I have someone in front of me or because I want to channel for myself. I mean, I do try to connect with my guides and set up a nice light space for myself and make sure that the energy is clean and clear. But other than that, just, kind of open up the door and see what comes through.
Do you see, hear, feel? How does what you experience get experienced by you?
So my
Luck.
main, if you're talking about the clairs like clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, mine is claircognizance. I tend to know, like I
No.
just sort of know. There's some people who can like actually see things, some people who can actually hear things. I do not see or hear. My reality seems to be fairly like I would imagine everybody else's. I just tend to know things. And also when And this is when it gets so interesting because we only live in our own brain. We have no idea how anybody else's brain interprets things. And this is the most fascinating thing to me on, say, social media when people are talking about, various neurodivergences like autism or whatever and how their brains work. And then some people are like, wait, you see pictures? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, wait, not everybody sees pictures. So I definitely do. I will see pictures. I will receive words and I will receive understanding. And I do feel things like I can read, if someone's upset, I will feel it. If someone's having a strong emotion, I will feel it. That one's a little murkier for me because I'm still learning how to determine what's mine and what's not.
Oh, yeah.
That's real tricky sometimes. Somebody once told me actually, it was my aunt who told me, I think this was when I was going through my, I had a lot of tantrums when I was younger, and my parents were just like despairing of me because, I'd just start screaming and crying in the middle of God knows where. And this was the 80s when you couldn't do that. And my aunt said, she's like, you just feel everything for the entire family. And so I was just feeling everybody's everything, and it had to come out somewhere. And so, that was the time when I could still throw tantrums in public. Sometimes I wish I still could do that. I don't anymore. I wait until I get home and I pull my pillow over my head and then I throw my tantrum.
That reminded me when I was a teacher, you get these kids who are just almost out of this world. And this particular little man, his mum had told me that he had imaginary friends who weren't imaginary, if that makes sense to you, a lot. And he'd see things and blah, blah, blah. And I got him when he was 7, 6, 7. And one day, a kid had thrown out a whole sandwich. And it's really hard to pinpoint and isolate. And the idea is you teach them the lesson behind why you don't do that, or a better way to handle that if you don't like what you're getting, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So instead of, trying to isolate and investigate, I just thought, we'll keep everybody in for a few minutes and have a talk about this and see if I can elicit honesty.
Mm-hmm.
This kid ate his sandwich next to me. And I said, I really don't want to have to stay here and wait for someone to be honest. I'm not going to be upset with you. I just want to know who has done this. And he put his hand up and he went, Mrs. Ammo? And he was like, crying. Was it me? And I went, no, you ate your cheese sandwich next to me. We were talking. Don't you remember? And he's like in his mind, he's trying to, and I went, oh my God. Mate, you can feel the guilt of the person who did it. And I'm just sitting there with my own brain like, holy fucking shit, this kid can feel that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. And so, strangely enough, it wasn't that long after that I had a parent who was a little bit woo-woo, and she just went, you're like a little butterfly. You pick up everything from everyone. You need to spend time at home alone every day and do the meditation stuff. And what do I feel?
Yeah.
Is that mine? It's not. Later. And I thought, who's got time to do that every day? And I thought, this kid needs to do it every day. And who's to say that that wasn't me growing up without me realizing it? You know what I mean? But it is such a confronting thing to see, because I'm thinking this kid is so sensitive and so sweet. And I always wonder, like, how would he be going on his journey, and how can he? I'm just grateful that he has the access to the knowledge. You know what I mean? That if he really wants to look for things, he can find it. And he had a really close relationship with his brother, so he's not alone. He's the closest thing to a twin without a twin I'd ever seen. And the other thing that I have to mention here, because I don't want to assume anything, but I'm assuming there's kids around you regardless, right? You see kids, young kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was teaching with some teachers who'd been there multiple decades, spanning usually around the 20 to 30 year mark.
Mm-hmm.
And I only left, what are we in, 2024? Like 3-4 years ago now. I was hearing things coming out of those teachers' mouths that the little ones that we got coming up, so whatever this generation we've got coming up now, they are like from another planet.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
The
Yep.
one thing I've noticed about this lot, they are not conformist, which is my favorite. They challenge everything. They love their independence and their individualism. And they're very much just like this other kid, very much open to all these things that are coming up and out. Are you noticing that as well?
Oh yeah, the kids right now are blowing my mind. And this is a little bit less from my lived experience because I'm not around a whole lot of children, on a daily basis. But just from what I receive, it's like basically the earth right now is the place to be. Like everybody wants to be here, and so much is happening right now. Like we are at such a point of change and transformation on this planet that it's such an exciting thing, and it requires a lot. So not only do
Mhm.
people want to be here, I don't know how it works, but like some of them are like, well, I got, okay, all right, fine,
Exit
I gotta do
plug.
it, and
Yeah.
so, and they land here, and I think it's going to be, because the thing is, there has to be some like 15 or 16-year-old right now, or 5 or 10-year-old or 3-year-old who's going to figure out how to make sure we all have clean water, someone who's going to figure out how to clean the air, or it's going to be a group of people, or like that information has to come in so that we can survive. So it's already here being nurtured, or whatever it is, they're going to get to it how they need to get to it. But that information is here, and it's in the kids. It's in the kids. I think pretty much every single child who's born in the last, I want to say like maybe 10 years, has got something special going on. I mean, every human is a piece of the puzzle. Every human
Oh,
has their special thing, but this is just a whole next level of,
ramping it up.
yeah, yeah.
I completely agree. My interest, do you ever tune into stuff to find out collective stuff just for your own knowledge? Like, so what's happening with humanity in a decade or whatever?
Yeah,
What's your like
sometimes.
burning question? What's your thing that you always want to know?
Ooh, what's the thing that I always want to know?
People think you can find out anything, anywhere, anytime, everything. Like, people don't understand there's limitations on this, and they're not going to give you a lotto number.
I mean, and the thing is, too, is that we're not on a set trajectory necessarily. One of the slight divergence, one of the most fascinating things that I like to see is when someone makes a strong choice, is like, okay, I'm not going to, specifically for my mom, this was the most recent one I watched. She was like, I'm not going to be eating sugar anymore. I know that it's not good for my brain. And, she has some worries about various brain issues. And she's like, okay, I'm just not going to do it anymore. Bye bye, Diet Coke. Bye bye, sugar. This is terrible, but I'm going to do it for my health. And she made such a strong decision that I watched her timeline shift into something completely new, healthier, happier, just more life for her. And she's coming up on 80. So this is exciting.
When you
And
say cut sugar, do you mean just like the Coke and stuff, or like she won't eat bread with sugar? She's even careful with the sweeteners, if any, that she
yeah,
uses. And
she's careful with everything. I don't know.
well,
Actually, she says she's been cheating a little bit lately.
of
So
course,
there's, like, I mean,
the
I've tried all
system
the things myself, and it's
food
hard.
was designed to be sugared for the last
Yeah,
like 60, 70 years. It's a hard thing to break, but the
it's
dedication and
hard
the motivation.
to get away from.
Oh, just the fact that she did what she did, I'm really proud. That
And
is,
yeah, me too. And
you would
her
have watched it.
timeline shifted.
Yeah.
I watched it. And so the connection is that, we are on this planet, there's not a set trajectory. We are all contributing to
Mm,
this trajectory. We are all contributing our own small piece, and our thoughts are creating it. And so I
mhm.
feel like one of my jobs is to continue holding the highest possible vision for humanity and our planet as I can. Like there are some people who are here to be the protesters, who are here to, like I was just watching the protests at my alma mater where, there were some
Is that
students.
a university?
Yeah. So I went to Barnard College in New York, and Columbia, it's part of Columbia University, and Columbia has
All
such a
right.
wonderful, like, they were so proud of the protests they did in the 60s. And this was just like maybe a month ago. students were protesting and getting kicked out of school, kicked out of housing, like homeless in New York City. They were having to stay with their teachers. And so I saw like on Instagram, there was just a line of teachers like surrounding the students. And
I understand that you probably got it on the news,
yeah.
but when you're not watching mainstream media like that, what's going through TikTok at the moment, they're showing the history of what happened last time because they were doing
Mhm.
this with apartheid in South Africa, and
Mhm.
they got, I think it was Colombia, wasn't it? No, sorry, not Colombia. They actually cut the funding that they get from countries that were supporting. There was something that they did with the money side of it, and that's how
Yeah.
they helped instigate change. They're asking for the same thing with the protests now, but the stories that I'm hearing coming out, I don't know if my timeline's off and I'm hearing it now and this happened because you said a month ago, but when they took down, like they arrested 100 and 200 students or whatever, the next day multiple hundreds more come in because they realized what was happening, and then teachers started getting involved. I heard a story only a couple of hours ago on there about and it's almost like beauty from trauma and terror, but because there was a generation who were raised learning how to protect themselves in a classroom from anyone coming in because of so
Yeah.
they have done this in the university and they barricaded themselves in, and the cops who were coming couldn't get in. So they managed to use their children.
I
I
think I
was
saw that too. Yeah.
honestly, and school upon school upon
Yeah.
school, even high schools are picking up the
Mhm.
fight out there. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's happening right now, but from what I'm seeing, this is something,
Yeah.
and all I could feel energetically, the
Mm.
power of this is
Yeah.
so awesome. And
Yeah.
there's only so much pressure things can take before change happens.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud, honestly, for this time in humanity. I've never seen the world come together like we have been coming together. And we're doing it in a very peaceful way. That's not the way the media portrays things, but the numbers coming together. And this is it's essentially in the middle of nowhere compared to the Western world. We should be disconnected. And some people are. They've been shutting down airport terminals and things, and they're interviewing people who are getting their flights cancelled because of this. And one person would get on the mic and say, "This is a minor inconvenience to me, but I'm going to live. I can eat. I can just jump on another flight. This is for the right reasons." And then another guy would complain, and they're causing a disruption. Isn't that it doesn't, maybe they're doing it for the right reasons, but is this really the right way to do it? And then the guy said, "Is this going to cause you grief?" He goes, "No, just jump on another flight." You know what I mean? So they're stopping bridges. The Brooklyn Bridge, they
Oh,
shut down.
I almost got caught. The Golden Gate Bridge was shut down for like
Exactly.
6 hours. And I was heading because I live in Petaluma specifically. So I was heading into San Francisco over the Golden Gate Bridge that morning. And I'm just lucky I looked at the news, or I would have gotten caught in it and I wouldn't have been going anywhere. So I had to go around the entire bay. I had to take multiple bridges, and it was a pain in the butt. But I don't know that the Golden Gate Bridge has ever been shut down before. I'd have to look that up, but certainly not in my memory. Yeah, that makes a statement for sure.
Well, you know how what you were saying with your mother, making that firm shift
Mm-hmm.
does make new timelines open up and
Yes.
create something from nothing and
Yeah.
positivity. And when you've got so many people focusing their energy, and I think the danger is when you're focused so much with the negative energy for this positive solution. I think to myself, why aren't we doing a mass meditation? Why aren't this million people, instead of marching around, meditate and everybody visualize, and then spend the next couple of hours walking and talking and then sharing what you visualize with each other, and just feed it, feed it, feed it. See where the fuck we go to
Yeah.
change the world like that. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we're wanting a solution from people who are causing the problem. Like that's
Mhm.
and so we're having to go down their ugly routes. Like, let's cut their money and then let's see what happens. But I can see that change is happening. And there's certain people on the TikTok sort of platform who are known in Gaza. And
Mm.
when there's a woman, I think her name is Baisan, and I nearly cried watching her, but I felt it, the energy that she's talking about. She was saying, I have hope for the first time in my life. I'm imagining a world and a future where this is happening, because, and it was very much because of the stand that America is taking. So, and it started happening in Perth, I saw as well. So in Australia, people are doing things as well. These things, it brings me such a joy to know that humanity is banding together, because we seem to all, the mainstream of us, all want the same thing. We all see the same truth, and we all just want peace. We want freedom. We want love. We want global prosperity, like equality, the basics. You know what I mean? We're all on that same team, and I can see that we're going to get there. It was so crazy. I saw it when we're in a meditative group recently as well. We were supposed to be doing like a past life regression thing, but instead of going back, I couldn't help myself. I went forward, and I just saw all these people. It almost looked like how it is now, where there's just so many people protesting, but it wasn't protesting. There were just people together, and it was just peace and love and supporting the same movement in a positive way. And I said to the whole group, we're going to get there in my lifetime. I'm going to see it. I'm not seeing, you know what I mean? I'm seeing something that's going to happen while I'm alive. And I honestly can't wait for it. I do think, honestly, shit going down. Things are being torn down with what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And that sort of occurred to me. I'm not sure if you agree, but I think one of the main things holding this back is that if they cave and change happen, the message that that sends to the people, you band together, you win. Everybody knows it. There's power in numbers.
Yeah.
We're stronger together than we are divided. They keep us divided, blah, 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 blah. It's going to get to that point, but that's sort of the straw that will break the camel's back. The fear is not so much, we can't solve this problem. What are we going to do? It's, if the people can win, the people will keep winning. And it's all crumbling. We see all these systems crumbling. And that was sort of what I was left with. It's not that this can't happen for the reasons that people think. It's this, they're afraid of what's going to happen if this happens, and the precedent that it sets for people, because we're already challenging all kinds of things. And, oh,
And
you're
challenging
part of,
status quo is never easy. It's never comfortable. And even people who really feel how important it is, it can be scary when you don't know what things are going to look like after what we know crumbles.
mm, mm.
And so that's where they talk about getting comfortable with the discomfort. I wonder, because I just know from my own life and from, people I know personally, how tricky it's been, because in their own personal lives, things are changing. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's coming next. And so it's almost like we are learning how to manage that on a personal level so that we can manage it on a global level. Like each person is kind of being taken through their own experience with it, taken through their own lessons with it, so that we can hold it. We can hold it as a collective when it's time. And know that, okay, even though I didn't know how I was going to get money for this time, or what my relationship was going to look like, or what my home was going to look like, or if this thing that I really want was going to work or was going to happen, like holding that and knowing that it's okay, whether it works or whether it doesn't, and kind of sitting with our own feelings about it, sitting with our own experiences of it, and just knowing that we're going to be okay. However things unfold in our personal lives, we're going to be okay. And however things unfold on a global scale, we're going to be okay.
The other element with what you're saying, because of all the disclosure happening at the moment about stuff outside of us and our planet, or stuff outside of us on our planet and around our planet and all that sort of stuff, there's a lot in the pot being mixed around at the moment. So I think there's no way you can keep moving forward without there being a lot of change and an unknown adaptations needing to be,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. And if there's one thing we're good at, it's adapting, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
then I think it's the little ones, the younger kids who are actually going to be more, because we're dealing with all of this. It's like all of the foundations of the complex buildings and structures we've built in our minds and our bodies and our hearts are being crumbled. Do you imagine growing up like this? It's just right. Oh, power to anyone dealing with kids, young kids at the moment. You need to nurture those souls because oh, we don't envy them. But
Yeah.
I think they're going to grow up thinking, well, we don't envy you people. Like, no, we got to make the peace and see the beauty and feel the love and yeah, make the stir. Yeah. I've taken an hour of your time. I wasn't expecting that. Well, I have absolutely loved talking to you, Amber. It was
Oh, me
so
too.
nice
This
to
has been
meet you.
so much fun. Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you too. And I just love talking about this stuff. So this
Me
has been
too.
great.
And you're just a ball of love as well. And your heart, oh, you got great energy. I love it.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
I'd love
you.
to
You
talk to you
too.
again.
Yeah, that'd be
Thank you.
wonderful.
So, thanks for being here with us for this app. New ones will come out to you every other Thursday. If you'd like to get in contact with Amber Adrian, I highly recommend it. She is a ball of love and fun. I'll leave her details in the show notes, but definitely follow her on socials as well. If you'd like to stay up to date with the world of Ali Ammo, follow me on socials, but otherwise, you take it easy, people, and you'll hear from me soon.